Good morning, everybody. Eek, eek. It's March 31st, and it's time for Protecting the Nest. Good morning, Carol.
Good morning, John. Nice to see your happy face.
It's a nice sunny day here in Atlanta.
Oh, it's a cloudy day here, but it's not pouring down rain, so that's nice.
Count your blessings.
Yeah. I think, California is getting inundated this week.
Yeah, I got a friend there in the Silicon Valley area, and he says that it's a more than the usual amount of rain.
Yeah, it sounds like LA, the whole southern part of the state was getting it too. Well, we can maybe start with this video if you want.
The one about Bill Gates?
Yeah, don't let them get away with it is what it's called.
Okay, let me bring that up. Yeah, I saw the first 45 seconds, and it looks very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Very appropriate.
Yeah.
It was not botched. It was not bungled.
It's real quiet.
It was not.
Okay, I'll try and pick it up.
It was not lack of knowledge. It was not spontaneous mass hysteria. The planning. It was not botched. It was not bungled. It was not a blunder. It was not incompetence. It was not lack of knowledge. It was not spontaneous mass hysteria. The planning occurred in plain sight. The planning is still occurring in plain sight. The philanthropaths bought the science. The modelers projected the lies. The testers concocted the crisis. The NGOs leased the academics.
COVID vaccines are now available for children.
The scientists fabricated the findings. The mouthpieces spewed the talking points.
A pandemic of the unvaccinated.
The organizations declared the emergency.
The voluntary phase is over. It's time for mandates.
The governments erected the walls. The departments rewrote the rules.
If you have travel plans, there is one more thing to add to your packing list: proof of vaccination.
The governors quashed the rights. The politicians passed the laws. The bankers installed the control grid.
Individual carbon footprint tracker.
The stooges laundered the money. The DoD placed the orders.
Is it likely that American tax dollars funded the gain of function research that created this virus?
I think it did, not only from NIH, but from the State Department, USAID, and from DoD.
The corporations fulfilled the contracts.
Pfizer is making tons of money from its vaccine.
The regulators approved the solution. The laws shielded the contractors. The agencies ignored the signal.
She developed severe abdominal and chest pain.
The behemoths consolidated the media. The psychologists crafted the messaging.
Get the COVID vaccine.
The propagandists chanted the slogans. The fact chokers smeared the dissidents. The censors silenced the questioners.
You guys censored Harvard-educated doctors. You silenced those voices.
The jackboots stomped the dissenters.
We will shut you down. We will cite you. And if we need to, we will arrest you and we will take you to jail.
Screw your freedom.
The tyrants summoned, the puppeteers jerked, the puppets danced, the colluders implemented, the doctors ordered, the hospitals administered. The menteciders scripted, the bamboozles bleated, the totalitarianized bullied, the covidians tattled, the parents surrendered.
The hardest thing was I let him get that shot.
The good citizens believed and forgot. This was calculated, this was formulated, this was focus grouped, this was articulated, this was manufactured, this was falsified, this was coerced, this was inflicted, this was denied.
Anybody who's lying here, Senator, it is you.
We were terrorized, we were isolated, we were gaslit.
You really need to get vaccinated.
We were dehumanized, we were wounded, we were killed. Don't let them get away with it. Don't let them get away with it. Don't let them get away with it.
That was brilliant, Carol.
Yeah.
That was positively brilliant.
Yeah, it was almost, I thought of it almost like a haiku, you know, just those single words and those tiny little clips. And it gives me chills, you know, just thinking how coordinated it was and how calculated and thought out. And we've been there trying to tell the story for years now. And finally it's coming out, but it's really been a lot of people digging hard to dig the receipts up, you know. That's, and you know, our group is one of many. Fortunately, there's a lot of people, and even within the groups that are working on this, like we've seen with Robert Malone suing other people, and you know, there's still a lot of deception and hair pulling, and what else does school plays, you know, even within you know, bringing the information out, those same operations continue to happen to obscure it and to get people to look at other things, look away. But yeah, what did you think?
The one I thought it was really excellent, very well produced. I don't know who put that montage together, but it was great. I especially liked the term "the fact chokers."
Yeah, that was good.
That was really good. But yeah, they chose the right people for every 3-second time slice. The dancing nurses was spot on. That was very well done.
Mm-hmm. We watched it all unfold, much to our horror. You know, it just keeps unfolding, the gift that never stops giving. And you know, it's continuing to hurt people everywhere in so many ways.
And the really awful part about this is that they could do it again. They're talking about Equatorial Guinea now. Did you hear that?
Well, I know. I mean, I know all the plans out there. I know all the different viruses all lined up that already have, you know, the whatever you want to call them coming after, and you know what it really is. You know, I mean, I even the very first shot and the stuff we were looking at 3 years ago with Sina Bavari, you know, and then I looked into him getting, you know, he got kicked out of US AMRID. He got put into the WHO and also the Geneva Foundation, where he spent $1 million a year for the next 5 years looking into botulism, which is Agent X. You know, in the aircraft refrigerators, it's like the most virulent neurotoxin that a teeny little thimbleful can like destroy the entire planet's nervous system. And he used that program to, and the money coming in, just I think we called it CEPI, or we didn't call it, the Rand Corporation called it CEPI. But how do you take these neurotoxins and sell them, spread them out and sell them to everybody? And he made all these products, you know, things you inject in your skin, use it for adjuvants and vaccines, you know, the big list of all that research that fell out, all for botulism. After this happened, you know, it just, that's only one little aspect, you know, everything else. The fact checkers were outrageous that you mentioned. You know, they didn't say anything. They didn't check any facts.
They did not. And
they
one
just
of the most
the thing 10 times. Yeah, the lie.
Right. One of the most interesting facts, well, not necessarily a fact, but observation that came out a few weeks ago was that someone in Twitter pointed out that they have discovered and analyzed over 5 million proteins since 1970. Where was the ground level push to discover these 5 million proteins? You know, I never approached a scientist, said, oh, can you please go discover this protein, or the source of this? I can understand an illness if somebody has a rare type of liver disease or skin disease or problem with their eyes, and they want to find out what is the source of that malformation. I can understand a few proteins being discovered, but 5 million, that's a lot of research. And how come the scientists are getting wealthier and wealthier, and we're getting less healthy and more poor at the same time?
Well, I have a little insight into that, because one of the things I really dug into early on too was WIPO, and how that whole program, which is the World Intellectual Property Organization, and it just totally flummoxed me that they started with viruses. Why would you start intellectual property organization for the whole world with viruses and then expand it to virus-like particles, which are proteins? It's the stuff in the spike protein. And they did it, and they put patents on all of those things, starting with the toxins and then digging into the particles. And this started early on. It came out of the Geneva Convention, actually, that they were talking about the they were talking about how all the intellectual property rules in all the different countries didn't line up, and that they had to put them all into this world organization to move forward. And
Yes,
and then
they always couch it in those terms, that it's a very big problem, especially in third world countries, and we, the noble senior leadership and scientists, especially in Europe, have to descend onto the masses and solve their problems because they're not capable of doing it themselves. But by the way, if you could figure it out for yourselves, no, you can't do that because we have the patent.
Right, we have the patent, and we're going to spread the patents out to our friends and to our collaborators and to the universities. They get the money, the individual scientists get some of it, and even the agencies, the CDC and the FDA become patent holders. Government agencies are patent holders. Not only that, but the money they get to do it, that comes from the foundations, comes from the profits the foundations made on doing this pyramid scheme. What else can you call it?
Yeah, it is. But it took me a long, long time, many years, to figure out it was a gigantic pyramid scheme.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and the money sucks up from the bottom and to the top. And now we're watching it spread out, with the smart cities and the pennies on the dollar, moving into these high rises and changing the landscapes that make it easier for this track and trace program that I think is gigantic. And, it's a huge infrastructure, the same thing. And it's going to be monitoring these digital hospitals. So you don't even have to go in. They already know what's wrong with you and what you need. The answer is already in the AI. So, and plus they can actually deliver medication to people through frequencies, to make sure you take it, especially if you're mentally ill and disagree with any of this stuff. That's what makes you mentally ill, of course.
Right. Their definition.
Yeah, right.
How could you not trust us? We're the authorities.
Yeah, and you will love owning nothing and not having to do anything except hook up to our hospitals to tell you what to do. It's just so wacky, and if you actually go to the WEF videos, they tell you they're going to do this. They tell you they're going to read your mind while you're at work. And if you have any lusty thoughts about your coworkers, they'll know and they'll fire you. That's what the video was. It's just like, what? This is, control on a level that it's way beyond what happened in World War II, but it's times.
Yeah, in fact, another Twitter subscriber said, "My grandfather fought in Normandy. He did on the 6th of June. He did the storming of the beach, Omaha Beach. He said my grandfather would not have gone 50 feet up that beach if he could see us now. Everything they fought to prevent is coming true."
Yeah, it's coming true because the people that financed Germany then are the same people that are the WEF. It hasn't,
right.
Nothing has changed. Everything stays the same, but everything changes. So it's time for a real change, WEF.
Now, what have you learned about this this new group or association called the Great Real Reset? It's supposed to be like frontline doctors merging with a few other groups to combat the WEF. Do you know anything about them?
Not really. I mean, I know the frontline doctors and other groups, and I would hope that it really is, a brain trust of people who, want to help make something that won't repeat these terrible, terrible things that have repeated in history for so long. But I don't know. Of course, part of the program is to divide everybody and then swoop in and be the heroes. So that's what we want to make sure that group isn't. And it's probably a mixture of people. So we just have to keep, looking clearly at what's really happening and asking good questions,
Right. And asking our elected officials and their bureaucrats the tough questions, not softball ones.
Yeah. And I don't think I think it's starting to happen, but it's going to be a process. It's going to be a long process. And, so far things haven't completely disintegrated, although I think in Europe, from what I see, and I don't know, is that the real news or the fake news? We don't know really, but people are real upset. Things are changing faster there, it looks like.
Well, like I said a few weeks ago on Protecting the Nest, the Europeans, the middle-class European, is more awake. He's ahead of the curve with respect to his American counterpart, but he has less power. The American has a lot more power, especially at the level of the county and the state level, but he's not awake. He's not as awake as the European is yet.
Yeah, I think Europe felt what happened in World War II in a different way than we did. I mean, and all the people that were there are pretty much dead now. But culturally, we didn't have that dark cloud that we had been passed on. I think we wanted to see it's all done. We're moving forward. And we didn't notice that the same people came over here and joined in the corporations and intelligence agencies and the scientists. Many scientists came over. And then when the Soviet Union shut down, a lot more scientists came in at that point too. And I don't think we're as aware of that.
Yeah, I think that the important thing is to make sure that younger people do not just automatically assume that they're going to work for a WEF or UN sponsored organization in their neighborhood is a slam dunk. That's automatically a good thing. We have to encourage them to look very critically, even those who are so-called red-pilled, like the Tipping Point USA people. We want to encourage young people to be as on their toes as they can, to look for the sleight of hand and the moving shells, because the people at the top are very sneaky. And even a friend of mine in Ohio, in Tiffin, Ohio, got bit by he found out way too late in the game that the usual suspects were taking many donations from him, and under the guise of helping promote democracy and freedom and the whole bit.
Yeah, well, what I see, my friends whose kids all went to nice colleges, and they want to work for the NGOs, because when they get out of school, they get funneled into these giant corporations, and then the giant corporations give them an opportunity. Well, you can get your master's or your PhD or whatever, and then you can go to work for one of the NGOs here that are on the list. And they think, great, I'll be doing good stuff. I won't be part of the corporation. But that's not the case. And they're locked in because they have big loans. Anyone that goes to a good college that's not super wealthy is going to end up with giant loans. And then to get those advanced degrees, you make deals with the devil. So
yeah, I've met plenty of kids at MIT who are graduating and with debts of like 90,000, 120,000, 140,000. And that's why the big club has resisted so strongly the student debt forgiveness, because that way they're bound to work for the big money, instead of taking a small job or working on the family farm or doing anything else.
And you really see this with doctors. They have huge medical, education debt, just gigantic. And so they have this huge overhead. They're working now for a hospital. They're not independent anymore. So they have to, toe the line. They have to, there's no wiggle room to say, oh, well, maybe you shouldn't do this. Maybe you have a point. You have a lot of complicating conditions that mean this might be a bad idea. I couldn't believe it. I had, serious complications in the past from immune disorders. And I had a doctor that was like a naturopath, who'd said he'd write me a paper, write me a letter, said I didn't have to do it. Early on, when I first saw this company, he said, oh yeah, no problem. But then when it came down to it, and he wasn't even in a hospital he was independent, but the pressure, maybe it was about the loans, I don't know, but he changed his tune, and I was so shocked. So there's coercion on all these different levels, and things that we can't see and don't assume it's coercion, like just looking at the news. You're looking at the news you've always looked at, and you don't realize what a mesmerizing, repetitious, you do if you see it. You think, how can people look at this? This is ridiculous. But if you're just doing what you always did, and these are nice people and they're saying things that make sense, then there you are.
Yeah, it's you use the word repetition, and KG in Atlanta just told me yesterday, most of the propaganda works by repetition, constant repetition of an idea. And for example, you always see, every time there's an accident and a person of color is involved, they'll say, well, somebody says, a bystander says that a potential suspect was wearing a red hat, and they don't necessarily say it was MAGA or anything, but they constantly repeat this idea that people who wear red hats do not like people of color.
Yeah, that's what's so crazy, because, well, none of my friends know any Republicans at all. And so they think I'm associating with these racists. And it's like, what? What are you talking about? These are people that have ethics. And there's, Black people and Chinese people, and, they're all working together. And it's hypnotic to get that repetition over and over again. And I think, we just had a program. I guess it was on Neighborhood News about that, about hypnosis. So, yeah, that's how you do it, at least 10 times.
Well, speaking of MAGA, I saw this one clip you sent about President Trump in prison.
Yeah.
That was pretty good. Do you want to play that now?
Sure.
Well, first I'll invite Tara.
Oh, good.
Oh, hello, Tara. Can you hear us?
Yes, hello.
Oh, there you are.
Hey.
Hi. I made it. So,
Nice.
okay, I was just listening. So it sounds like a good clip.
Oh yeah, this is really funny. It's humorous, but it makes a couple of important points on the side. All right, here we go.
It's pretty quiet.
They began to wail. The band was jumping, began to swing.
That's the best I can do.
Okay. Yeah, you have to turn it up. Everybody turn up your volume.
Murphy playing the tenor saxophone. Sleepy Jones blowing on the slide trombone. The drummer boy from Illinois went crash, boom, bang. The whole rhythm section was a purple gang. Let's rock. Everybody, let's rock. Everybody in full cell block. Dancing to the jailhouse rock. Number 47 said to number 3, you're the cutest jailbird I ever did see. I sure would be delighted with your company. Come on and do the jailhouse rock with. The word is through a party in.
Woo! I love it. Because anybody just hook it up to your speakers and then you should get a better sound. Because I couldn't hear the detailed lyrics, but it sounded pretty dang good.
Well, I love the fact that I love seeing Joe Biden with the mask.
Playing the trombone.
Well, this is so interesting. It's like, I don't even know what it's. You can tell that it's just like an entry into like a new phase, something kind of funny. And it's like, you only think that it's funny if you have kind of this like bird's eye view, maybe you'd say. I don't know what people think.
Well, I think it's wonderful to see it as this crazy play, and let's have fun with it. Let's make it into an operetta. Let's, because it is. One of the crazy things is what I'm hearing, and you see it on interviews and stuff on TV, is what do you think about this? And a lot of people say, well, we just gotta keep him from ever running again, like that. And that's again part of the mesmerization. I mean, I think there's lots of crazy things I don't agree with Trump with, but he wasn't the worst by any means. He did lots of good stuff. And what's happening now is very, very much in question. So here we are. We'll see what happens. But I think his attitude, being irreverent, is appropriate.
Okay, Tara, you're muted. I have.
She's not muted on the thing.
Well, there are 2 instances of Tara on StreamYard.
Oh, so we have the wrong Tara? We can't hear you.
Tara, I think you have to go out and come back in.
But I guess I think that where we are now politically is that it's just so unreal that we might as well just enjoy what we can. Have fun,
Well,
dance
it's
party.
kind of it's a little bit like being in a reality show.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone has to kind of accept that this is the new way we do things worldwide. You're on camera 24/7 wherever you go. Kind of like, what's the name of that Jim Carrey film?
Oh, I know the one you meant, but he's living in a dome.
Right. Truman Show.
Truman Show, right.
We're all on the Truman Show, and you just have to kind of accept it, smile while you can, but draw a line in the sand. Know where you will not go, what point you won't step over, and be true to your friends, and don't try not to sell your soul.
Mm-hmm. And love life and love nature and appreciate things and keep learning. I mean, we can do what we do as humans, and that's how we're going to win, because I think this big control grid in the sky that's coming down, I personally, my view of this whole COVID thing was just a setup for that. It was just a way to get people to not pay attention long enough that can be put in place. So that's the Truman Show part of it too, that we just have to refuse that and keep pointing pictures at it, say, look, it is a Truman Show. And eventually enough people will get to the edge and feel that edge and say, whoa, it's time for something else.
So yeah, so sorry. I was just trying to flip my camera and then I'm coming in all weird. But anyway, so can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. All right, good. So Carol, I missed what you were saying. So you were basically saying that like you feel like that it's all kind of a show, and that what was your angle on the President Trump thing?
Well, I just think we have to enjoy what we can, because it points out the school play. It points out that the silliness of all this, that we're pretending is serious, but it isn't serious, and it can be, once you point the finger at it, it's like popping the balloon, or feeling the edge of the Truman Show dome, so
the emperor wears no clothes.
The emperor wears no clothes. Yeah. The more we can do that, the more, but you have to do it with the receipts too. And I think that's what we're all trying to do. I don't know, Tara, did you get to see the first video? Did you have that?
No, I came in.
Okay. It was pretty great. I'll send it to you. And you
okay. Yeah. Send it to me. So I put a pretty interesting picture that I thought people might want to just ponder about, but I couldn't get into the chat. So that is in our thread, our text thread.
Yes.
Okay. So I don't know when you want to pop that in, but also, so I had popped in the thing from, I was watching on Fox Business yesterday, the weaponization of government hearing. Have you guys talked about that at all?
No,
not yet.
Oh, okay. Did you see I know there's like numerous hearings that go on at the same time. So there was something that was definitely noteworthy that, watching a couple times. Have you guys seen that one?
Well, I've seen the weaponization of government. I've seen various clips, but I haven't seen the entire thing because it's many hours long. So be happy to hear your clip. Who was being interviewed on your?
Okay, so I'll just tell you, because there was 4 witnesses that came in, and I don't have their names in front of me. One is Landry, one was, anyway, they were like attorney generals and assistants, and
Was
very,
it including Redfield? That one?
no, this was
okay.
this was
4
just
guys too.
Yeah, this was just about censorship. So there's 3 really stand-up people, and one I didn't consider stand-up. And so the speeches that they gave is right up until the point in the clip, and so the speeches are very good, but not anything that we don't know about, like censorship and what's been going on and blah blah blah. But if you put it at minute 29, that is where the 2 people they get to leave. And so that's the very tail end of the 2 people that get to leave, and then kind of the interim before the 3rd person gets to talk, which is the interesting footage. Can you hear it?
Oh, that's why I'm muted. Sorry about that.
Oh, good.
Removed or soft blocked.
It's kind of quiet.
As a result of this collusion between social media companies and the CDC, NIH, citizens and journalists were banned, censored, silenced, and deplatformed for their valid concern about lockdowns, COVID vaccines, and more. Robert Kennedy Jr., the nephew of a president, the son of the former U.S. Attorney General, nephew of a distinguished U.S. Senator, who, by the way, was a Democrat, was censored. Tucker Carlson, who hosted the top-rated primetime television news, was also censored, as so were millions of Americans, while deceitful and manipulative voices like Dr. Anthony Fauci were elevated. This censorship enterprise knows no bounds, and it's not limited in scope to COVID-19 or elections. Yet many of the committee members will sit here today and say, what can we do? I say, bring the federal government to heel. No one in this chamber on both sides of the aisle should be opposed to that. And I applaud this body's efforts and the chairman for passing the Protecting Speech and Government Interference Act. However, I would offer that it just doesn't go far enough. And I would ask those on the left to join in making it tougher. The time has come when we must hold federal employees and contractors and federal actors accountable by terminating both their jobs and their retirement for violating the First Amendment of American citizens. If they participate in violating First Amendment rights, and that's what a court finds, then those are the penalties that should be imposed. This chamber should also draft legislation that will open the pathway for legal liability for such conduct, so that American citizens have a right of action against their own government in protecting their, and I repeat, their First Amendment rights. There must be a penalty, or this problem will never be solved. And if you would like to understand exactly how bad this problem has become, I invite you to read our satirical pamphlet, The Censorship Enterprise. The Future is Now, which is basically the federal government's guide to limiting disfavored speech. If you're not disturbed by that document, you're either complicit or contributing to the problem. But know that the state of Louisiana and Missouri are fighting back against this vast government censorship in our federal courts today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, let me pause it there for a second. Let's pause it there for a second. I'm a little concerned. Why is he talking, of all people, why is he talking about we got to control this censorship?
Well, this is actually a case that's coming, that's Louisiana and Missouri versus someone. But right at that point that you just stopped it, I'm sorry, like, that was really good. I probably would have listened to in a little bit of faster speed. Sorry, I didn't tell you to do that. But if you play it right where you paused it, that's kind of the entertaining part. And then it clarifies things.
Okay.
Leading into the next
one more
topic.
time.
Okay, so it's like the interim. So the first person talked and he was similar to that one. And then that person talked. Then this thing happened. And then the other two people talk. It's the opening statements.
Can you hear it? Oh, it's not even playing.
No.
Well, let's call it outrageous then. I'll use the same term that my colleague did.
That word be taken down because it's false.
I think you
and
just
it's
said outrageous.
inflammatory.
Mr. Chairman,
in debate on
Gentleman from Louisiana.
No, Mr. Chairman, in
Committee will
debate.
be in order. The gentleman from
point of
Louisiana
order.
said it was not salacious, it was outrageous. He changed the term. We will now
Mr.
get
Chairman,
to other
in de-
witnesses.
no, Mr. Chairman, in debate on the point of order, please. It was just raised.
From Florida is recognized.
Thank you very much. And the Attorney General from not a member of Congress is not entitled to an extension of the seat that we of our colleagues or even
We extend. I would just say to the gentleman from
He
Florida,
was
we
a member-
extended the same courtesy to Attorney General Landry, former member of the
Mr.
United States
Raskin
Congress,
was a
that we
member-
extended to Tulsi Gabbard, former member of the United States Congress.
That
We're
was a
being
member panel.
consistent.
Mr.
The chair
Chairman,
now recognizes
that was a member
Mr.
panel. This
Sauer
is not a
for
member
his
panel.
5 minutes of testimony.
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman,
Sauer, you are
on the point
recognized.
of order, on the point of order, at least, if we're not going to have the ability to cross-examine, I would move that we move to strike the testimony provided by Senator Schmidt and Attorney General Landry. If we're not going to observe,
You mean you want to censor it? Is that you want to censor
I
their
want to
testimony?
strike it. I want to strike it. I want to strike it. If we aren't able to probe the veracity of their statement, the truthfulness of their statements,
You will be given your 5 minutes here with when we get to the 5 minutes.
they're
of
not
questions.
here.
They're not here.
They're
I
absent.
understand
They
that.
cannot
You will
answer.
be able to
They
ask.
have scurried away with your complicity. They refuse
have
to
not
defend.
scurried away. They
In
were
a country
dismissed
of
like all
330
witnesses.
million
The chair
people,
recognizes
you
Mr.
couldn't
Sauer
find 2 people
for his
to
5
defend their
minutes of
statements.
testimony.
That's pretty disgraceful.
Mr. Sauer, you
allowing them to
recognized.
leave is not weaponization. I don't know what is, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, right.
Thank you all
It will
for
be in order,
illustrating
Mr.
our
Sauer, you
point. Thank you.
recognize.
Keep it going for a second.
Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Plaskett.
Mr.
members of
Chairman,
the
I move to
subcommittee.
adjourn. I move to adjourn.
The
This
gentleman's
is,
not
this is a
recognized.
mockery. This is a mockery and a disgrace. And it's
Gentleman's
shameful
not
that
been
you participate in
recognized.
this.
The gentleman, Mr. Sauer, is recognized for his 5 minutes of testimony.
There's a motion on the floor to adjourn.
Motion to
and it is
adjourn.
not debatable,
It's not
Mr.
debatable.
If you don't know the rules of the committee, then talk to your parliamentarian.
Well, you weren't recognized for your motion.
Nor are you
Mr.
following the rules of the
Sauer is
committee. You can't
recognized
speak
for
out of
his
order.
5 minutes.
What are you doing? What are you doing? You're out of order.
Mr. Sauer, you
Listen
can
to your own
proceed.
words.
What?
So anyway, so Mr. Sauer goes on to represent any question so well that any of the people that had to leave were able to answer. So that's on Fox Business. I don't know if they're the only ones, but that was the most entertaining part anyways. But
yeah,
so
this is it. I'm gonna play a couple more minutes because this is entertaining, but also very interesting, very, very interesting from what we were talking about before.
Member Plaskett, members of the subcommittee. Imagine a world where White House officials email the New York Times editorial. The paper runs a story criticizing the president, views the paper in profane language, demand immediately pull the offending story from its website. White House publicly threatens stating legal consequences if the paper doesn't comply, and it does. Imagine a world where the FBI every month sends all the major booksellers in the United States an encrypted list of the books that the FBI wants them to pull from their shelves that month and burn. And the booksellers comply by bringing at least half of those books. Imagine a world where a federal national security agency teams up with a major research university to establish a mass surveillance program of ordinary Americans' political thoughts and opinions. They use swarms of analysts and cutting-edge technology to monitor hundreds of
So
millions
basically, I don't know if we want to keep on listening to this. This is like his, like, probably if you want to go in, like, not necessarily you don't have to right now, but it's the way he kind of like is able to defend their questions that I would say would be the interesting part to kind of go in to see his work there, because he did a really good job. Then they had another guy from Stanford that was just there to like toe the line and say everything that they want to say. At one point, they're like, and the arguments are so weak. They're like, but they were riling up people on January 6th. But can we enter Time magazine where they say masks do work, or this is like racism, or just they got nothing?
You're muted, John.
Muted.
I see a reality show within a reality show within a Truman Show.
Yeah.
Because everyone is reading from a script. I would even argue that the entire session was rehearsed a couple of times the day before and the 2 days before. No one says no one says there's no pauses and there's no confusion of where did I put that piece of paper. It all looks very, very scripted.
Well, and then they read their scripts all at the same time for special effect, simultaneous script reading. So just to make confusion and pandemonium and ridiculousness.
But they do that on Broadway too. On Broadway, they rehearse arguments.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I am beginning to really not like Jim Jordan.
Really? Oh my! I love him. Why?
Because the more and more I watch of him, the more it looks like, well, like when he interviewed Fauci, softball questions, just softball questions. You remember, Catherine Austin Fitts made a great comment back in September. She said the Lanny Brewer gave immunity, criminal immunity to the bankers in 2009. At that point, everything on Capitol Hill becomes kabuki theater or Broadway. It could be off Broadway, on Broadway. It's all theater. If the bankers have immunity from any criminal prosecution, they can replicate the powers of a sovereign.
Well, the bankers have immunity, and the pharmaceutical companies have immunity, and the government has immunity, and the intelligence community doesn't have to say anything because they have immunity. The only people without immunity are the ones at the bottom.
Are the people.
The people. They don't get any immunity.
You know, that is something to be said, because the whole thing of like, oh, you're manufacturing stuff and like pumping it out and you have immunity to what happens. Like, there's no law that can make that make sense.
Yeah, nothing says trust the science like you can't sue me if something goes wrong.
Exactly. So that's why I meant, my judgment of every person really is, yeah, you can see me scrambling around. It's because I saw a big hawk. I had to do some hooting and hollering, and I'm counting the chickens. But body language is really my ultimate judgment of what I always rely on. And so it's hard to sway me from that. And I do believe that people have taken on different roles, but I think being suspicious of everything is a good way to go.
Well, I think, since probably the late 40s or certainly the 50s, the idea of plausible deniability means it's okay to lie. So this has been going on for our whole lives, and probably your parents' whole lives, that some people, it's okay that they lie because theoretically they're supposed to be protecting us and keeping us safe, and those lies are because of that. But it's expanded so hugely that everybody has to do this plausible deniability to just keep going. I mean, the big companies, the agencies, it just goes on and on. And that whole idea of plausible deniability, we just have to say, no, we need to find out the truth. Finally, we need to unravel all this stuff and figure out why it happened, at least enough. There was some in Germany, there were some hearings. In South Africa after apartheid, there was some kind of truth. What do they call it? The Truth and something Commission.
Reconciliation.
Truth and reconciliation. Yeah. So, but in both of those cases, I think a whole lot was still hidden. And how do we get past that? How do we get to a point where, yeah, we need to reestablish trust? There is no trust, and that is because that's intentional at this point. We know that. We know that no trust is an operation, which means that then if we get our money, we only get it if we can prove we are right in lockstep with everybody else. And we have to prove it every single second of our lives for the rest of our lives. That's no trust. But it also means, yeah, if you can't trust anybody, then you have to have this gargantuan system put on top of you. But we want to build trust from just letting the chaos happen and keep asking the questions. I think that's really the original idea of what science is. You keep asking the questions, and the truth emerges. It evolves, and you never get to any final point. But the process allows it to get better and better. Instead of right now, even science is all full of lies and protections for money and, all kinds of rules that don't make sense. So we just have to keep being able to ask questions is the only way out of this mess.
But we have to fight for the right to ask questions.
Yeah, right now, we don't even have that. We're censored if you ask a question. If you say the wrong word, you get taken down. So how do we need to get past that somehow or other?
It's pseudoscience, So it's just like color of law, pseudoscience.
I think it's worse than pseudoscience. I think it's the science of deception, which is probably not quite pseudo. They know what they're doing.
They know very well what they're doing.
There's intention here.
But the whole idea that they use a scientific method and try to get to some kind of like baseline, just even having a baseline or standard to compare things to, it's like, that's why we talk about all this stuff. That's the Marxism stuff, is because it's like the whole idea behind that is like, there's no there's no real solid truth. There's no defining standardized point to like gauge things from. You know what I mean? It's all just
Marxism has that dialectic idea that somehow that gets you to some truth by having two different sides and then some synthesis comes out of it. But the reality is, if the two sides are fake and the fight is all there's all this unreality there, then we can't get to anything. There is ethics. Ethics is a science too, and that's what's missing. Really, is that people aren't taught that there is, in many cases, kind of a right action if you consider what you need to consider. There's a way to get there, but we're throwing that out. We're throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah, because I should have had the clip ready, but there at the Grassroots Army, I think it was, they were having, I don't know where it was, but it was basically like someone came in to describe, I think it was California, and they were describing the Marxist thing, and that's basically what they said too, that there's no universal human ethics, moral ethics. It doesn't exist, which is just, there's just, to me, that is a sickening thought, honestly.
Well, the ethics that I understand is that you really need to have space in your life, have to listen, and that's where you discern by using all your little antennas and everything you've ever learned from everybody. You discern your path, and that's ethics, is taking the right next step.
Well,
so
that's part of getting the kids early, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, one good thing is that there are so many more people on guard to analyze and break things down. So you just put up, thanks John for putting up that Grassroots Army, because it really is we are an army of trying to have all positions covered, get information to the right people. Like, for example, things that affect kids, get it to the parents, get it to the caretakers, yeah, exactly. Health, who needs to know what. As a matter of fact, I wanted to say, I haven't looked into it yet, but I just saw something about really high levels of thiamine, like B1, for different doctors talking about it for just a health boost of different stuff. I haven't exactly looked into it yet, but some of these things,
a lot of it in eggs. So that's what you're doing right now. You get a lot of B vitamins in your eggs.
Yeah, exactly. And even just last night, where a family member was like, "Oh, I'm between paychecks. What do you got for food?" And we were able to send over a bunch of food and just a big old thing of 2 dozen eggs and stuff. So that's great.
Yeah.
Glad they asked, so that's the whole thing of networking, is like, if we all just really, and spring, that's one of the things you see me kind of over here. Just, I know in the North, we need to really layer our projects because we have a limited time and we need to decide what we really want to focus on.
So you're focusing on your chickens?
Well, I think that's pretty rolling. So that's kind of incorporated into the thing. It's the new projects that I'm trying to make sure that I catch the season, that I'm kind of
for spring,
harping on. Yeah.
Get the planting and all that stuff happening. Yeah.
Well, Amber's kids have started a chicken coop, and I think they have six chickens now.
Oh, all right. We can get the chickens update.
And they're so excited. I asked him what he got for his birthday, and I can't remember what his birthday gift was, but he didn't really care about the birthday gift, but he was really excited about those chickens.
That's great. Well, speaking of birds, I do have a little hummingbird update. The hummingbirds, I think, got a little bit worried about everybody peeking in their nest. Because it was right at eye level. But there was also other things too. There were little juncos and little birds that were also poking around there. So we see the hummingbirds but they don't sit in the nest as much. She hasn't laid her eggs yet, and she didn't make the real smooth white interior. We got as far as these little white balls of fluff. They look kind of like eggs, but they're made out of fluff. But then the next stage after I've seen a hummingbird nest is to spread that really thin and perfectly in this beautiful little hemisphere right under her tummy to protect the eggs. But I have seen her. I did see her in there once, and they are still using the feeder, and her beautiful husband has this salmon iridescent color under his chin. He's so pretty. So I have a little update, and we don't have any chickens yet. Every year we talk about getting them, and we haven't done it yet.
Well, the hummingbirds are great. They're so beautiful.
Yeah, they are so beautiful. And they're, using their antennas to go find what they need, their nectar and their little messages from food. They go and get it.
And it's so funny to see them still, because when they're moving, there's almost like a big bug.
I think they move like bugs. I think the way their wings, they work like that, and it is a hovercraft. They can change their wings and then flap them so fast that they can cancel out the fields, and then they're actually like an anti-magnetic space coop. Remember that? Does anybody remember, what was his name? Dick Tracy and the Magnetic Space Coop. They move like that. They move like UFOs.
Well, I can't find it right now, but I ran across a paper a couple of years ago by an MIT student on an artificial hummingbird, or a tiny robotic hummingbird.
Mm-hmm.
They could get, if the air was perfectly still, they could get the robotic hummingbird to hover and stay more or less in one place. But if there was a large wind or lots of turbulence, the real hummingbird can stay right there at the flower, and the robotic could not.
Well, that's the problem with AI. What we can do with all those, our processes that go way down into the tiny, tiny frequencies are so more advanced than the AI will ever be, that we're going to have problems like that going forward with this wacky system that gets put in. So we'll just have to laugh, but it's not always funny, sadly.
Well, that's part of our humanness. We can laugh.
Yeah,
right.
That's right. And we need to really keep it going.
One of the best debates, one of the funniest debates I ever saw was three professors on one side, three professors on the other side, talking about whether or not a human being, a human submarine commander, could be replaced by a robotic submarine commander. And three argued that yes, it was possible and it would be great. And three argued that they wouldn't. And these are six of the self-titled experts on artificial intelligence. And the debate it descended into a hockey match. Oh, you're a Duberhead. No, you're a Duberhead. No, you're a Duberhead.
Well, we're seeing, with the vaccines and the messaging and all that, I think we're seeing AI in action. We're seeing what the Wuxi supercomputer came up with, what the effects were, what the messaging supercomputer came up with, and what the effects are. And it's not a pretty sight.
No, it's not. But I've heard that ultimately their supercomputer, no matter how bougie they are, they kept coming up with the same thing that the evil ones are going to lose, and there's nothing they could do to stop it. So
well, we can see that happening. We just have to keep it going, keep our little conversations happening, spread it out through the ether, and slowly the erosion happens. I mean, there's nothing they can do because our organic nature is pretty amazing. It's really amazing. And it's hooked into all the dimensions. We have access, but we do have to practice. We have to practice that access. And that's what we haven't done. We've been distracted for 100 years, at least, probably more, from, listening to what we really need to listen to, our hearts, the world around us, each other. Deep listening will get us working together like it did. It brought us together. We're all working in synergy, a synergistic multiplier. It's a creative process that it works. It solves problems. It solves really complicated problems. So here we are. We can.
Positive energy is contagious.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And also following that little voice, whether it's coming from your heart, your angels, all that, but guiding you, it's like a wind or an ocean where you ride it and you're just like, oh, and that's kind of how I believe all of us, I speak for myself, but that's how we even found each other, is just being like letting that wind first take your imagination and then see where it lands.
Adding courage. We had to in the middle of the lockdown at the very beginning, we had to just come together like the hummingbird finding its, it's got its guide wave, and each of us had our other waves, and we all found each other. It does work like that in real life.
Exactly. And that's how we found each other, even on the simpler level, before cell phones.
Yeah, right. It worked before cell phones. And that's why it wouldn't be a horrible thing to lose, 5G and 6G and or even all of it. We can evolve what it is we have. Well, that was an interesting visual you just put up there, John. If you want to talk about it,
Dee, you sent it to me last week, and I started to dig into it, but I'm missing something. Can you explain it a little better?
Yeah, we'll show the visual, and
right.
I'll explain it a little better. Because what it is, it's a 2-hour clock. This is the sort of Chinese cycles. Can you shrink it so we can see the whole thing somehow, or
okay,
get the clock all the way going? So this is a 24-hour clock, and then there's sections that are 2 hours each that correspond with your Chinese.
I can't hear Carol anymore. Can you hear her, John?
No, I can't.
We can't hear you, Carol.
Oh, okay. Well, I've been talking.
I'm
there
sorry,
you are.
I muted
There you are.
instead of myself.
Oh, okay.
I
All right.
muted
So I don't know. When how much did you hear? So I don't have
You
to.
just started talking about the 2 hours, 2 hours of something.
Okay. Yeah. So you have each organ system has 2 hours where it's really charged up and going full blast. And then it has on the opposite 12 hours opposite, it has 2 hours where it's recharging itself. So if you look at, say, like the large intestine between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m., so that's a time where the large intestine is very active and it's waking up and it's starting to get rid of all the stuff it's been processing during the evening and the nighttime. And then so if you go up there, the bladder is one of the things that is opposite it. So the large intestine and the bladder are working at different times, but they all clean out at the same time. So it just shows you the kind of activities that can help enhance those hours and those times. But it's just a really good thing to be aware of these channels that are going on you, and that you have this this clock that's lined up with the hours of the day. It's you're affected by light. In the daytime, you're getting more blue frequencies, and in the nighttime, you're getting the reflected frequencies. You're getting this whole other kind of energy than the sun. You're getting the nighttime light energy then. So you're recharging with the frequencies that you're able to activate. And part of that, I'm just learning now with all the magnetism studying I've been doing, is that when you're awake during the day, you're vertical and you're connecting the sun and the center of the earth. You're a piece of charge, right? So that's your core, and you have this field around you that's aligned with the sun and the center of the earth when you're standing up. And it's an electrical charge. We get all kinds of stuff from all the different spectrum of the whole sun that comes in during the day. And then at night, you're horizontal. And what happens when you have a horizontal fields is they're magnetic fields. So you're getting a whole different charges happening. And I think that's what explains those 2-hour cycles that happen with all your meridians. It helps explain why that happens. So it's good to have one of those little things. You can look it up. They're the biorhythms of the day.
I love that.
Yeah.
And so I have a question, because I just got a phone call and your voice quality changed for me. Do I sound the same?
You sound the same.
The same? Okay. So that is I love that. And I knew that obviously the patterns of light, like the way that when you're growing plants, it's the same thing. Like they need to be sleeping then. And, and I wonder about how different people have, somewhat of different digestional time of days and stuff like that. So I wonder
people and evening people. Yeah.
So I just wonder if it's something that they're doing, because it sounds like, according to that, every person, because it's not like they react to it on their personal chemistry, but it's the cycle of the light that is making it.
There's a cycle of the light. There's a cycle of the magnetism. There's a bunch of stuff. And then people have different types, especially if you look at Chinese medicine or Indian medicine, there's kind of different body types, different different blood types. Yeah. So we're not all identical. In fact, one of the things I learned in my yoga teacher training that was really interesting was that the amount of variety in humans is a big flat curve. It's not a bell curve. It's not like everybody is kind of the same and then there's these outliers. Is that there's many, many outliers. We're all outliers in different aspects. And even your anatomy, the shape of your heart, there's this huge range, the shape of your bones, the density of your bones. There's just all this variety in our anatomy. And even the way, your joints work, the way, some people can't do the splits no matter what, their entire life, ever, no matter how hard they try, their bones won't let them, so there's just all this variety. And so the 2-hour cycles are kind of a general thing, and everybody might not feel them all the same. And then you're affected by, your environment too. But I've noticed that there are morning people that love the morning, and there's people that they can't really get going until later in the morning, and they love the evening. They wake up, they're theater people, they're musicians, they have a different creative cycle. So it's just something to be aware of, I think, that puts us in alignment or not. Go ahead.
I know I'm one of those people. I know that you are an early riser, yoga doer, able to get on before me, even though you're 3 hours behind. But in my life, I've definitely had to, when I was, just like 20 years old, something like that, I had to realize, okay, I need to really be aware of the sunlight. If I'm not aware of the sunlight, this ability to just get energized off of like conversation and like and keep it going and staying up, and then of course you got to get your sleep. So so you realize, like, even if you are that type of person, you really do need to pay attention to the light, because the light cycles they're not gonna cut you too much slack. I mean, they will, because of those nuances that you talked about. But and I would suggest, even to someone that works nights, take a nap in the sunlight if you can do that, because it's just very important to not get away from those cycles. And like, I think I've said this before, and no offense to anybody that does this, but like, there's something about like shades being drawn in the daytime that is like, it just like creeps me out. I just can't deal with it. I don't know. It's just my thing.
Well. I don't even like curtains. I like as much light as I can. But we both live in the north. I think it's different if you live in the south. Then you need to have shelter from the light, which can be overwhelming. Yeah, those the light cycles inform our cells, and deep inside, in the tiniest of dimensions that are, we're all these dimensions, and there are, going down inside, the cells, the organs there, this idea of parallel, that one going one way is electrical and going the opposite way is magnetic. This is something I haven't been so aware of until really recently. So I'm studying all this stuff now, but that matters a lot, those perpendicular. And when you see the little hummingbirds, they can go zip up, they can go zip sideways, and that's kind of what plasma balls can do, that too. So we're learning more about that, and how we are a plasma ball, and we are all these forces too. And how a big granite stone upright and a big horizontal dark lava stone full of holes that's horizontal, those are things that are in Zen gardens and in all of the cathedrals in Europe. There's these great big vertical towers and then horizontal stuff. So that really affects what grows and how much grows, and fertility. And you have to have both forces, paramagnetic and the diamagnetic, and the electric and the dielectric. You just need to balance all that all the way throughout everything. So
it's all about balance.
Yeah, it is about balance, and we can get out of balance. And that's why we don't want this grid in the sky, because that's not about balance.
Or the 5G.
Yeah, it's not gonna fly.
Well, this is the perfect time of year to strike your balance, because the opportunities are endless. And so that's why, of a person of many fleeting ideas, I'm trying to, I got 3 solid missions that I'm being like, all right, how am I doing this mission? How am I doing that mission, this mission? So that, I can really so that we can take advantage of the season however each one of us is planning to.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I noticed that something you said, Tara, is reminded me about the Wall Street Journal of a couple of days ago. They are trying to get everybody to panic. And so we have to exude a positive attitude, a don't worry about money attitude, and spread that throughout our community, through our friends and neighbors. Because if they decide to panic, like a run on the bank, things could get pretty bad pretty quickly. So we have to tell people, money comes and goes. Don't be worrying about excessively about money right now. There's other things to worry about, like your kids' education.
Well, I think people did panic about the virus, unfortunately. That got trumped up. And I think people are a little bit less willing to do it again, I'm hoping. And even if it's something else, it's like, okay, what are they going to throw at us next?
And this is an opportunity for us to really hone down on what matters, and to hone down on just what those dollars and whatever represent. What are they tickets for? So if we focus on that, that's the real deal. That's in our DNA. So we can totally get through this. This is something that we actually need to prosper, okay? And just like any controlled demolition, yeah, we do have to be careful, pay attention to what's going on. But I think that fear, there's no place for fear, there's only place for, action and contemplation. And Carol, what do you think about tree pose?
Yeah.
Get grounded, get rooted, and feel good.
And have courage. I think we have to have confidence in that. Courage will get us through this. I think that's what brought us together, and I think that's the one thing that algorithms can't fathom.
And that's what we want to be contagious. We want people to, we want laughter, and we want strength, and we want courage, and we really do have it. And I think we're lucky as Americans that our, the traditional American is based on that. And of course, that's how we connect around the world anyway. So it's not like you have to be an American, but the whole idea of, our Constitution, it's a blessing for the world, just like Jesus.
Well, let's hope the world can adopt that instead of the Weffers idea, which is top-down control.
Kick him to the curb.
I don't think it's going over so well, fortunately. But it's not over yet. We still have
well, the genie's not going back in the bottle.
Right.
And people are just bound to find out more and more. The truth is bound to be revealed more and more. And that's, I think, one of the things that we need to look forward to, even though we're conditioned to prepare for crazy stuff, which is good. You know what I mean? We're suspicious. We're trying to be prepared, trying to be strong, and we can do this.
Yeah. And we can discern what is the truth. We feel it, we can tell the difference. Hone it in. Well, I think we're getting to the top of the hour. Oh, you're muted, John.
At the same time, you need other people around you to, especially other ospreys, to encourage you to do things which are difficult for you. I was walking by here in Atlanta. It was 77 the other day, and there was a kid and his father out in the pool. And the kid was learning to dive, and the dad's like, "You can do this, Billy. You can do this." And I felt like he was talking to me. He's like, "You can do this, John. You can do this."
Nice.
Yay.
I love it. It is, and that's why we communicate, because we want these feelings and songs and emotions and ideas to be shared.
Yes, we do. And
Carol, do you want to close with that sonata?
Yeah. This is it's kind of somber, but it's very beautiful. So yeah, it's 3 minutes. Yeah, let's close with that.
Okay. Let me remember where I put it.
It's called the Moonlight Sonata for an Old Elephant.
It's beautiful.
I think it's breaking up a little, so maybe that's enough. It seems to be stuck.
Very, very mellow. It went really good with my bird singing behind me here.
Yeah. Oh, I've got the leaf blowers here, so I guess it's time to say goodbye.
All right. Well, have a great weekend, everybody, and just keep on eking.
Eek, eek.
Eek, eek. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.